The city sleeps beneath a quiet sky. Lanterns glow faintly along the narrow streets of London, their light flickering against timber walls and cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Merchants have long since shuttered their stalls. The taverns are dim, their last patrons drifting home through the cool night air. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls the late hour. To the people of London, this night feels ordinary. Another day is ended in a city that has endured wars, famines, and harsh winters. But beyond the horizon, across the sea and along the roads of Europe, something unseen is already moving. A sickness. A sickness that has already emptied villages, silenced towns, and darkened entire kingdoms. And by tomorrow, it will reach London. Tonight is the last night before the Black Death reaches London. It is late autumn in the year 1348. The air is cool and damp, and a thin mist curls its way along the narrow lanes. Oil lamps flicker against timber-framed houses that lean slightly inward, as if listening to one another in the dark. London is already an old city by this time. Nearly 1,300 years have passed since the Romans first laid its foundations. The Roman walls still stand in some places, worn but present, and within them live perhaps 40,000 souls: merchants, labourers, priests, bakers, servants, children. On this night, most of them are blissfully unaware of what is approaching. Not far away, across the Channel, the sickness has already swept through towns and villages. Rumours have filtered in through ports and along trade routes. Stories of swelling fevers, of sudden death, of entire households lost within days. But rumours are not reality, and tonight, London still breathes as it always has. Let us walk quietly through it. Down by the Thames, ships creak against their moorings. The river is London's lifeline. Wool leaves from here, bound for markets in Flanders. Wine arrives from Gascony. Spices, though rare and costly, pass through the hands of wealthy merchants. And with ships come stories. In recent weeks, sailors have spoken of sickness in ports along the southern coast, in Dorset, in Bristol. Some claim entire households were buried in haste. Others insist it is exaggeration, or divine punishment for foreign sins. No official proclamation has been made. King Edward III remains concerned primarily with war in France. England is still engaged in what will become known as the 100 Years' War. Armies require funding. Taxes require collection. Political life continues. And disease is not currently a concern. The River Thames never truly sleeps. Even after sunset, small boats move quietly along the dark water. Fishermen check their nets. Ferrymen transport late travellers between the banks. Larger cargo vessels rest at anchor, their masts creaking softly in the night breeze. The Thames is the city's great artery. Food, timber, wine, and wool all pass along its waters. In the coming months, the river will carry another burden. Barges will transport the dead to burial grounds outside the crowded city. But tonight the river flows peacefully beneath the stars. The tide rises and falls as it always has, indifferent to the events unfolding on its shores. The streets are unpaved in most quarters. Mud clings to boots and hems. Refuse lies where it has been thrown. Straw, ash, broken pottery, food scraps, waste flows in shallow gutters down the centre of lanes. It is not a clean city by modern standards, but to those who live here, this is ordinary. A baker near Cheapside rises before dawn most mornings. His hands are rough with flour and heat. He worries about grain prices more than distant illness. Wheat shipments have been irregular lately. Weather has not been kind these past few years. Harvests across England have struggled since the Great Famine decades earlier. Food security is never guaranteed. He doesn't yet know that grain prices will soon fall, but not from abundance, from an absence of buyers. Tonight, he sleeps beside his wife and 2 children in a room above the bakehouse. The scent of yesterday's loaves lingers faintly in the wood beams. Outside, a watchman passes slowly with a lantern. Throughout the night, the city watch walks its rounds. Watchmen carry lanterns and wooden staves. They call out the hour, and sometimes the weather, reassuring citizens that the streets are being guarded. Their duties include watching for fires, deterring thieves, and ensuring that the gates remain secure. The job isn't glamorous, but it's necessary in a crowded medieval city. As they move through narrow alleys and market squares, their footsteps echo softly against stone and timber. The watchmen don't know that within months they will walk through streets far quieter than usual, where many houses will stand empty. As night settles over London, the great city gates stand closed. There are several entrances through the old Roman walls: Aldgate, Bishopsgate, Ludgate, Newgate. Each gate is locked at night and guarded by watchmen appointed by the city authorities. Travellers arriving late at night must often wait outside until morning. Beyond the gates lie fields, small villages, and the long roads that connect London to the rest of England. Those roads carry merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, and news. In recent weeks, travellers have spoken of sickness in the western ports. Some describe fevers that come suddenly. Others speak of strange swellings that appear beneath the skin. But the roads have always carried rumours. London has learned not to believe every story that arrives with a dusty traveller at the gate. Tonight, the watchmen stand quietly beside their lanterns, unaware that the roads outside the city walls will soon carry something far more dangerous than a rumour. Let's step into a modest home near St. Paul's Cathedral. Inside, a mother tends to a small fire. She's heard whispers from a cousin in the countryside with strange swellings appearing under the arms and along the neck of people in their village. That priests are overwhelmed with funerals in certain towns. But London has seen disease before. There have been outbreaks of influenza, of dysentery, of smallpox. Life expectancy is not long by our standards. Many children do not reach adulthood. Illness is a part of existence. There is no word yet for what is coming. No understanding of bacteria or fleas or rats. No comprehension of how trade routes carry unseen and dangerous passengers. If there is fear in the city, it is vague. In a monastery just outside the busiest streets, a monk copies scripture by candlelight. He's heard of pestilence abroad. Monastic networks are well connected. Letters pass between abbeys, and some speak of divine wrath. Others of alignment of planets. Astrology still holds intellectual weight in medieval Europe. Medical theory rests on the balance of humours. Blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, these must all be in balance. And disease is imbalance. Treatment involves herbs, bloodletting, and prayer. The monk dips his quill into ink. He writes steadily. He cannot know that within months, monasteries across England will lose entire communities. The Black Death, as later generations will call it, has already ravaged parts of Europe. It arrived in Sicily in 1347, carried likely by ships trading from the Black Sea. From there, it spread with astonishing speed. By early 1348, it had reached southern England, and by late 1348, it would reach London. Mortality rates in some areas would reach 30 to 60%. But tonight, the people of London carry on as they always have, unaware of the horror waiting at their gates. In Bermondsey, a young apprentice walks home from his master's workshop. He's been learning the trade of leatherworking. The guild system governs much of city life. To become a master, he must train for years. He plans for the future. Perhaps one day he will have his own stall. Perhaps he will marry. He passes beneath wooden balconies that jut into the street above him. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks. A door slams. Laughter rises briefly from a tavern before fading. Life continues with its small, ordinary rhythms. Young apprentices form a large part of London's workforce. Boys as young as 12 are often sent to live with a master craftsman. They learn trades such as blacksmithing, weaving, carpentry, shoemaking, and leatherworking. In return for their labour, they receive training, food, and lodging. The apprenticeship system shapes the future of the city's economy. These young workers imagine years ahead of them. The day they might become journeymen, then masters, then perhaps opening shops of their own. But the plague will disrupt these expectations. With so many lives lost, the structure of labour itself will begin to change. Skilled workers will become scarce. Wages will rise despite attempts by authorities to control them. For now, however, apprentices sleep in crowded rooms above workshops. dreaming of futures that seem secure. Church bells mark the hours. Religion is woven into daily existence. Nearly every Londoner attends Mass. The church is the spiritual authority in the city. It's the moral guide and the community centre. When the plague arrives, clergy will be among the hardest hit. They will tend the sick, administer last rites, bury the dead. They will essentially be the front lines. Many will perish in the process. But tonight, bells ring not in mourning, but in routine observance. London in the 14th century contains more than 100 parish churches. Nearly every neighbourhood has its own place of worship. Their bells ring throughout the day, marking hours of prayer and calling the faithful to Mass. The church is not only a spiritual centre, but a social one. People gather there for announcements, disputes, and celebrations. Priests keep records of baptisms, marriages, and burials. Within a year, those burial records will fill quickly. Some parishes will struggle to find enough clergy to perform the rites of the dead. Many priests will themselves fall victim to the disease as they tend to the sick. But tonight, candles burn quietly in chapels across the city, and the clergy continue their routines, as they have for generations. In wealthier quarters, a merchant reviews his accounts. He trades in wool, England's most valuable export. His fortunes depend on stability across Europe. War already complicates matters. If disease spreads widely, trade will falter. He's heard troubling reports from the continent. Entire regions depopulated, labour shortages, fields untended. He can't yet imagine how drastically society will shift. Wages will rise after the plague because workers will become scarce. Landowners will struggle to maintain estates. Feudal bonds will weaken. But that future is invisible tonight. Earlier that day, the markets of London were busy as usual. The largest of them, at Cheapside, is the commercial heart of the city. Here, merchants sell cloth, spices, leather goods, grain, and countless other necessities. The word cheap in medieval English simply means market. Traders arrive from across England and beyond. Flemish cloth merchants negotiate prices. English wool is weighed and bundled for export. London's prosperity depends on these connections. Trade routes stretch across the Channel into Europe, linking the city to ports in France, Flanders, and Italy. These same trade networks that bring prosperity also carry something invisible. The plague has already followed these routes across the Mediterranean and into Western Europe. London's markets, lively and crowded, unknowingly sit at the crossroads of its path. To modern visitors, medieval London would have been overwhelming in its smells. The city is crowded, and waste disposal is simple by necessity. Many homes empty their refuse into the streets or nearby ditches. Butchers discard scraps not far from their stalls. Tanneries work with animal hides soaked in pungent mixtures. The Thames itself serves as both a highway and a sewer. Yet the people of London hardly notice these things. They're accustomed to the scent of wood smoke, livestock, fish markets, and wet earth. Few could imagine that tiny creatures, fleas living on rats, thrive in such conditions. Those fleas carry a bacterium that science will not identify for another 5 centuries. Tonight, the rats move through granaries and warehouses along the riverbanks, unseen beneath the wooden floors. Let's step outside the city walls. In surrounding villages, farmers prepare for winter. Livestock are fed, tools are stored. The agricultural year follows predictable patterns. Disease, however, does not respect agricultural cycles. When it comes, it will move swiftly along roads and footpaths, through markets and inns. Some historians estimate that London may have lost as many as half of its inhabitants between 1348 and 1350. Mass graves will be dug outside the city. But tonight, that soil rests undisturbed. Even before the plague, burial space within London was limited. Churchyards inside the city were small and overcrowded. Over generations, graves were often reopened to make room for new burials. Some larger burial grounds lie beyond the city walls, where land is easier to obtain. When the plague arrives, these spaces will quickly prove insufficient. New cemeteries will be established in haste. One of the largest will later be known as the East Smithfield Plague Pit, where thousands of victims will be buried in mass graves. But tonight, those fields lie quiet and undisturbed beneath the moonlight. No one walking past them could imagine how soon the ground would be opened. In Southwark, a physician trained in traditional medieval medicine examines a patient with a mild fever. He prescribes herbal mixtures, perhaps sage, perhaps rosemary. He recommends rest. He has no knowledge of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for the plague. He can't see the fleas that live upon black rats, nor understand how crowded urban conditions allow transmission to accelerate. Even if he suspected a contagion, there's little he could do. Medicine in 1348 is limited by a lack of knowledge, leaving the people woefully unprepared. Physicians in the 14th century rely on ideas inherited from ancient Greek medicine. They believe the body is governed by 4 humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness, they think, occurs when these humours fall out of balance. Treatments often involve bloodletting, herbal mixtures, or careful adjustments to diet. Astrology also plays a role. Some doctors consult the positions of the planets when diagnosing illness. When the plague arrives, many physicians will interpret it as the result of corrupted air or unfavourable celestial alignments. Without microscopes or knowledge of bacteria, they have no way to understand the true cause of the disease. Yet many will still risk their lives attempting to care for the sick. The River Thames reflects the moonlight. Somewhere, a cart rattles over uneven stones. A woman hums softly to soothe a restless child. In another home, a man coughs, but it is only a winter chill. There's something deeply human about this night. History often speaks in sweeping terms: pandemics, wars, empires. But reality unfolds quietly and individually. Within months, chroniclers will describe swollen lymph nodes, known as buboes, in the groin and armpits, hence the later term, bubonic plague. Victims will experience fever, delirium, and vomiting, and many will die within days. Some forms of the disease will spread through respiratory droplets, making it even more lethal. But tonight, there are no buboes in London, only breath rising gently in sleep. If you listen carefully, you can imagine the soft crackle of harp fires, the shifting of straw mattresses, the distant murmur of a river that's seen centuries of change. London has survived Viking raids, endured fires, and rebuilt walls. It believes itself resilient, and in many ways it is. Even after the plague, the city will endure. It will rebuild, and it will grow again. But that knowledge belongs to us, and provides little comfort to those living through the plague. The night deepens. Mist thickens slightly along the riverbanks. A final lantern is extinguished. In the quiet darkness, there is no sense of catastrophe. Only ordinary life, poised on the edge of transformation. Tomorrow, perhaps, a ship will dock carrying infected sailors. Or perhaps the disease has already entered the outskirts, moving invisibly through rat populations. History doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it arrives quietly. As you imagine the city resting, consider how many other nights in history felt just like this. The night before a war begins, the night before a revolution ignites, the night before a pandemic reshapes the world. For the people within that moment, it is simply another evening. London will change profoundly in the coming year. Labour laws will be enacted to freeze wages, an attempt by authorities to prevent workers from demanding higher pay. Social tensions will rise, faith will be shaken for some, but intensified for others. Art, literature, and theology will all be influenced by this confrontation with mortality. As darkness deepens, the curfew bell rings across parts of the city. The word curfew comes from a French phrase meaning cover the fire. In earlier centuries, it signaled the time when households should extinguish their hearth fires to reduce the risk of devastating city wildfires. London has suffered terrible blazes before. Many buildings are made of timber, with thatched or wooden roofs that burn easily. Even now, the curfew bell still echoes through certain neighbourhoods. When the sound fades, doors close, shutters are fastened, and the city grows quieter. Only the night watch and a few late travellers remain on the streets. If we walk slowly now through the narrow streets of the city, we might pass the baker's door once more. The apprentice now has reached home. The monk has finished his line of scripture and blown out his candle. The merchant has closed his ledger, and the watchman made his final round. Above them all, the sky stretches clear and indifferent. No omen splits the heavens, no trumpet sounds, only the gentle hush of a medieval city at rest. And so the night passes. The lanterns burn low. One by one, the lights of London fade into darkness. In small houses and narrow alleys, thousands of people sleep without knowing what the coming months will bring. Merchants dream of tomorrow's markets. Children sleep beneath wool blankets. Monks rise quietly in candle-lit chapels to whisper their nightly prayers. For centuries, London has endured hardship, harsh winters, failed harvests, and distant wars. But nothing like what is about to arrive. Within months, the streets that now lie quiet will fall silent in a different way. Doors will remain shut. Church bells will toll again and again. Entire households will vanish from the life of the city. Chroniclers will later write that the pestilence came so swiftly that many did not even have time to understand what was happening. But tonight, none of that has happened yet. London is still whole, and the Thames moves quietly through the sleeping city. Ships rest at their moorings. The narrow streets lie calm beneath the stars. And somewhere beyond the darkness of the countryside, along the roads and rivers that lead to the city gates, the Black Death is drawing closer. By morning, the world the people of London know will begin to change. But for now, the city sleeps. And this is the last quiet night before the plague. And so we leave them there, suspended in the quiet space between ordinary life and extraordinary change, calm and unaware on the night before the Black Death reached London.